2024 Composite Team Talent Rankings. And this was published by 247 Sports. Came out earlier this week, I think. Excuse me. And Clemson happens to be a top 5 team in the talent composite rankings for the 2024, heading into the 2024 season. The only ACC in the top 10, Clemson. And they, as I mentioned before, they sit at 5. Number 1 is Alabama. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Clemson. Number 6, Oregon. Number 7, Texas A&M. Number 8, Oklahoma. Number 9, LSU. And Notre Dame rounds out the top 10 of the 2024 Team Talent Composite Rankings, according to 247 Sports. So they compile, obviously, everybody on the roster, 4 stars, 5 stars, and they rank it and they average it out based off of recruit or personnel that you have on your roster. So Clemson comes in at number 5. Average rating of 90.89. They got 7 5-stars on the roster, 45 4-stars, and 33 stars. Total points on that was 924.63. Good enough for 5th place. Again, the only ACC in the team in the top 10. The next highest ranked ACC team is Florida State. They're down at 13. They got 3 5-stars, 41 4-stars, 41 3-stars. Average rating of 89.63 on their players there. And then Miami is directly behind them at number 14. They have 5 5-stars, 34 4-stars, 43 3-stars for an average rating of 89.65. So their average rating is actually a little bit higher than Florida State's. But Florida State has more on the roster. They got 85 commits, Miami with the 82. So, again, that's the 247 composite team talent rankings. So, are you guys surprised Clemson is still in the top 10? There's a big narrative out there that, Dabo Swinney's doing a huge disservice to Clemson and the talent's starting to slip. They don't have the personnel that they used to have because he refuses to evolve, if you will, to the new parameters of college football with the transfer portal, NIL, all that kind of stuff. But again, Clemson still sits today as the most talented program in the ACC if you just bear it down to these rankings right here. And they're up there at number 5. So again, like me and Jordan have said before, it's really been a lot that has gone into Clemson's kind of slide from where they were in 2018, the last time they won a national championship. Jay says, what sucks is what it says about the coaching and miscues last year. Absolutely. It highlights a lot of what we've talked about on this channel and what a lot of other people have talked about when it comes to Clemson and some of the coaching hires that were made that obviously didn't work out. And that's not an opinion that they didn't work out because they were fired. So clearly those hires didn't work out, and Dabo agreed with that because guess what? He's the one that fired them. It shows that there was a lack of coaching. There was a lack of development. There was a lack of utilizing the talent that is on the roster, because when you look at Clemson and the way that they have played the last 3 seasons, and then you look at this and they're a top 5 roster, when you stack them against all the teams in the rest of the country, that's a problem. And that says that the coaching was not getting it done. And I think Dabo has done some to kind of correct that. You talk about bringing on Matt Luke this year, bringing on Chris Rump. You hire Garrett Riley a year ago. Obviously, the first year of his offense did not go as planned. And I think a lot of that was just the coaching that had gone on before. And Garrett Riley comes in and he's teaching a very different system, and he's asking the offensive linemen to do a lot of things that they had never done before. And if you see the first part of Clemson's season, they were doing a lot of stuff that Garrett Riley's offense typically does. A lot of pulling of the offensive line, getting them out in space, doing things like that. And then you see as the season went on and Clemson's losses stacked up, when we went on that 5-game span at the end of the season where we rattled off those 5 wins, if you notice, starting with that Notre Dame game, Clemson went a lot. They went backwards. They went back to a lot of those zone concepts that those players were already comfortable with, right? So obviously, offensive line was a weak point last season. Well, you fire the coach, you bring in Matt Luke. You hope that he can come in and correct them. You hope that a guy like Matt Luke can come in and really revamp that offensive line and kind of get those guys bought in and kind of get those guys ready to operate within a system like Garrett Riley likes to operate in. You're right, Jay. It does highlight the miscues and talking about the miscues that happened last year with Clemson. It was really, I mean, it's really crazy from game one on. I mean, I've mentioned it on the show before, but Clemson didn't play a single game last season where we didn't turn the ball over. That is crazy. Not a single game did we play last season where we didn't turn the ball over. Luckily, our defense created a lot of turnovers, which kept us in a lot of games, which ultimately is the reason that we won as many games as we did, thankfully for the defense. But the offense, I mean, you think about that Florida State game. You're getting towards the end of the game. Clemson looks like they may pull off this win. And then what happens? A sack, fumble, touchdown the other way. We're going to overtime. We ultimately lose in overtime. I mean, it's just the catastrophic turnovers that happen on a consistent basis last year were mind-boggling. And that's something that we as Clemson fans right now, we have to hope that Dabo Swinney and the rest of that coaching staff has corrected, because it was detrimental. I mean, Dabo's talked about it. He talked about how many times we fumbled at basically the 1 yard line, first and goal, goal to go at the 1 yard line and fumbling the ball going into the end zone. It happened far too often last year, and it lost us games, and it stole momentum, and it hurt the defense, and the offense put the defense in so many precarious positions last year just due to their inability to hang on to the football. I mean, we couldn't even get to a punt last year. We're just handing the ball to the other team, and a lot of those turned into scores, pick sixes, scooping scores. It wasn't just a sack. It would be a sack, fumble, touchdown. It's just the worst possible scenario you can come up with, and that's got to be corrected this year. And you got to hope that it can. But when you think about Clemson having a top 5 roster, there's no excuses. And I think we got to really hope that some of these coaching hires and the getting rid of some of the coaches that were there before will kind of solve some of these issues, and we'll start seeing these players play up to their potential and up to their talent level when they were brought into Clemson. But again, that remains to be seen. We talked about it last week. We got to see it to believe it, right? The offense has sounded like they had a pretty good offseason. They had a pretty good fall camp. Cade Klubnik reportedly has grown. The offensive line has reportedly grown. The wide receivers are reportedly as healthy as they have ever been, and looking sharp and looking well. But again, are they going to look like that come August 31st when we kick the ball off against the Georgia Bulldogs, the number 1 team in the country? That's the big question, right? That's the question that remains to be answered. And we won't know until the ball's kicked off and we see, hey, how do we measure up against what everyone right now thinks is the best team in the country in the Georgia Bulldogs? How do we measure up? Do we look like we belong on that field? We'll find out August 31st. And we won't have to wait, because guess what? That's a noon kickoff as well. All right, guys. So that's my thoughts on the 2024 composite rankings from 247 Sports. Again, I'm not surprised that Clemson's top 5, because we've continued to recruit at pretty much the same level Clemson has always recruited at. The problem is it hasn't showed up on the field in the past 3 seasons. And that was, you could point to a lot of different things. You could point to injuries. You could point to coaching. You could point to missing on some individuals. You can point to a lot of different things that factored into that. But the fact remains the same is Clemson has greatly regressed over the past 3 seasons. And I think 2024 is the year that we find out whether we're going to get it turned around in the right direction or we're going to sink further into this regression that has become Clemson football over the past 3 seasons. Jay brings up a good point, kicking. This is still something that, we kind of mentioned last week. We still don't have a clear kicker. Every time Dabo's asked, he says, excuse me. He says that, one's a little bit above the other one. They're going back and forth, so on and so forth. That's not what you really want to hear this close to, week one. You want to hear that a guy in Hauser has leaped ahead and he's asserted himself and he's going to be our kicker going forward. But they kind of answer the question and they say, oh, well, Hoosier, he's kind of, he's been a little ahead pretty much all camp, but Robert Gunn's right there. That's not what you really want to hear, in my opinion. You want to hear that one guy has taken the job and the other guy, hey, he's the backup, or, hey, Robert Gunn, we're going to use him as a kickoff specialist, and Hauser, he's going to be our field goal specialist, right? That's what you really want to hear, and let's hope that he's ready, right? Let's hope that Housier's ready, because kicking hurt us a ton last season, and we can't afford another season of that going on. Orange Blooded said, Matt Luke will get our O-line recruitment right. I believe that. I 100% believe that. With that said, we got talent in that room. And I think Matt Luke's the guy that's going to get the most out of the talent that's in that room right now. We've done pretty good at recruiting offensive line. Obviously, I think Matt Luke's going to take it to a different level than Clemson's recruited at. And you guys have heard me and Jordan talk about the offensive line before and the fact that we hate that Clemson doesn't really have and just never really had that elite level offensive line. And it really makes no sense because of how elite our defensive line has been for so long. Games are won in the trenches. There's no reason that Clemson can't also be elite at the offensive line position. But again, I think Dabo made the best hire he possibly could at the offensive line coach in Matt Luke. And I think he's going to take it to the next level. 100% agree with you on that, Orange Blooded. Think it'll be Gunn as kicker and Hauser as place kicker. Yeah, that's probably how it'll work out. That's what I assume as well. But again, I wish that Hoosier was just taking that next step and like it's a definite, right? Not he's a few kicks ahead or he's been a little ahead in fall camp. No, he's our kicker, right? That's what I want to hear. But it's just not what we've heard. And that just tells you how close that is. And it tells you that both of them are still somewhat inconsistent is what it tells me, which is not a great feeling heading into the season when you got a game against Georgia a week away. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts on it. So
college football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, But you can't miss Steve's weekly Under the Radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.